Hello everybody, Dan Lucas from Credo here, and we are on day 18 of our 50 states in 50 days. And today we are doing Louisiana, which of course was part of the Louisiana Purchase by none only than Thomas Jefferson. And Louisiana was admitted to the Union on April 30th, 1812. So let's see, that was 9 years after Ohio. You know, I never really realized, I guess, that Ohio was admitted as a state so early. And so I guess I learned something myself in kind of doing this. I had always kind of thought that the Louisiana Purchase was sort of the next phase. But, you know, now I'm seeing the Kentucky and Tennessee and Ohio. I didn't really know that, so I learned something, and maybe you did too. But again, we're not here to talk about history. We're here to talk about tax credits. So we're going to talk about Louisiana tax credits. And, excuse me. Pretty good. I'm pretty impressed with the Louisiana tax credits. You know, there's obviously a lot of big cities there. Baton Rouge, you know, New Orleans come to mind. A lot of industry on the water, of course, because it's right, you know, on the Gulf. A lot of energy plants down there and stuff. I know about that. I know there's a lot of like chemical plants, a lot of natural gas, things like that. So Louisiana's got a lot going on as far as industry and just commercial activity. But yeah, let's walk through some of these. So Louisiana has, let's start with the angel investor tax credit. Louisiana has this tax credit that we've talked about in other states. If this is the first time that you're seeing one of these videos, the angel investor tax credit, it encourages accredited investors to invest in early stage, small, wealth-creating Louisiana businesses that seek startup and expansion capital, right? So you may have already invested in a company that qualifies for this, or you might want to look for a company that can qualify for this, or you might be raising capital, and you can use this as a huge sales point to potential investors that they can get this angel investor tax credit. This is not something that goes on in every state. If I had to guess, I would say maybe 40% of the states have it, but it could be wrong. It could be like 40 to 60. But I don't see a lot of people taking advantage of it, and I do see a lot of people that qualify for it, unfortunately. So you get a 25% tax credit on the investment, and it has to be certified in advance by the state. But man, that's huge. That's a huge tax credit. Wow. If you're investing in businesses and they're in Louisiana, or if you have a business in Louisiana and you might be looking to raise capital, you need to be looking at this and look this up. That's a very generous credit. So the angel investor credit, love it. All right, the next area is going to be the enterprise zone tax credit. And we've talked about enterprise zones in previous videos. It's also a federal credit, but a lot of times they have different zones in the states. And so you can double dip. And sometimes the state zones are slightly different than the federal zones. And sometimes you get a credit state, but not federal. There's a lot of overlap, but not always. And so if you, it's effectively a job incentive program. So, in other words, you get a one-time, you get either a one-time $3,500 credit or a $1,000 tax credit for each new job created. So if you're creating permanent and new full-time jobs, you get a one-time credit of $3,500. It looks like about 5 years you get a $1,000 tax credit. So you can either get it up front or over time. And it looks like you also get a rebate on some sales tax. So that's kind of unusual. I haven't seen that before in any other states. But you know, if you're creating jobs or you're hiring people and you're in Louisiana, look up the map, the enterprise zone map. Or if you can't find it, put a note in the comments or something. We can look it up for you, or I can look it up for you, or someone on the Credo team can look it up for you and try to help you with that. But there's a lot of information about what all is qualified. But just know that if you're creating jobs, they have different zones geographically that if you're in, you can get some tax credits, and you might have money just sitting there you just have never claimed. So you're going to want to go ahead and go after that. So let's see. We've got well, that's a job creation program. I might come back to that. We have the motion picture production program. It's not anything necessarily that new. These have been around a long time. Well, I would say a long time, you know, not 100 years, but like 10. And these are common in the States. Not all states have them, but they're common in the States for motion picture, like they call them film tax credits a lot of times. And let's see. Looks like in 2017 they did a little bit of change on it, but the formal name of it is the Motion Picture Production Tax Credit. And you get a 40% tax credit on total qualified in-state production expenditures. That's pretty big. Usually I see about 30. So 40 is pretty generous. And remember, you can, well, these can also be carried forward, I believe. So if you don't use them in 1 year, you can keep carrying them forward. It looks like you have to spend at least $50,000. Okay, so the last state that we did, let's see, was Ohio. I think that was the state where you had to spend like $300,000 or something. So $50,000 is a pretty low bar to get to. And you might, even if you're just spending it on digital marketing or videos you're making, et cetera, you might even get up to that number doing that. So don't just think this is just Hollywood. This could be other things that you're doing. And it says the maximum amount of credits that can be issued. So anyway, it looks like they have a limit as to amount of credits that the state can give out, which is not uncommon, but it's not always there. So this is a little bit of a race, a little bit of a rat race. So if you have these, you're going to want to get in there and get them as fast as possible. I don't know if they've used up their credit limit every year, but if they haven't, you can go back and amend returns and get these from prior years. So, or if you think you're going to be doing a lot of production, like if you're going to be doing a lot of video production for marketing, you might want to consider doing a ton of production in 1 year, even if it's for a couple of years worth of videos, because you can get a tax credit if you spend a lot of money in 1 year. Okay, that's just a little planning tip. Let's see. They also have the research and development tax credit. These are awesome. Federal credit and a state credit, so you can double dip if you're in Louisiana. And let's see, it provides a 30% tax credit on qualified research expenditures incurred in Louisiana. So if you're in Louisiana, you can double dip. You can get a federal credit and you can get a Louisiana credit. And Louisiana credit you can only use against your Louisiana taxes, but you can also carry them forward. But that's 30% is pretty good. It's pretty good credit. And there's no cap and there's no minimum requirement. So, you know, that's pretty generous. Problem I see with a lot of R&D credits, people call research and development R&D credits, is that most people don't know they're spending money in this area, but if you're a growing business and you're investing in systems or new processes, or you hire a consultant to come in and do processes or process improvements, a lot of stuff that is really improving the business, and it's not just like, you know, putting new paint on the walls or something perfunctory. It's something that's legitimate. Even your own time that you might be spending can come into it, your own salaries. If in doubt, check it out. It doesn't take very long, because most people that aren't familiar with this credit are shocked at what qualifies. And they just had never, everybody has their own idea of what research and development is and what it means and what qualified. Everybody's is a little different. I can tell you that in the tax codes, it can be pretty broad. Okay, now they do have requirements that you have to fulfill, and you have to go through and do a lot of documentation, and you have to know what qualifies and what doesn't, to be careful there, because they can come in and beat these up. These are big credits. Big dollar amounts typically, and they're very generous credits. So they will challenge them if something is totally, you know, if it just seems out of whack, or if they're just targeting credits that year. So you have to really dot I's and cross T's on it. But we do a lot of this kind of work because these are big credits. So anyway, let's see. We have the let me go back to, let's see, the digital interactive media and software. So they call it the digital interactive media and software program. And I guess it's known in the law as the digital interactive media and software tax credit. And well, they're saying it's the strongest of its kind in the nation. So, wow, that's a bold claim. It provides a 25% tax credit on qualified payroll for in-state labor and 18% for qualified production expenditures. Most times that includes contractors. Okay, so it's not just what you would think of as maybe tangible spending or something. It's contractors too, or outside services. You might have a post-production company or something, or that does video editing, and the bill that you pay to them could be included in that. There's no cap, there's no minimum requirement, and you can apply it to your state tax liability. Or applicants can opt for 85% of the value earned as a rebate anytime during the year. That's pretty neat. Okay, so yeah, that's a pretty strong program. I like that. And that is, I think this is kind of a bolt-on to the media or film tax credit, in that it really expands the definition of it. And I think they're doing this on purpose to make sure that people are getting the tax credit for just digital interactive media. It's not just necessarily video production that you're doing digitally, which I think most people are doing that. They miss the credit altogether. They're expanding it to say, hey, look, if you're doing, if you're making interactive media and creating any software, et cetera, we're going to give you a big tax credit on that. So, in Louisiana, if you're online doing digital marketing and stuff, check these out, because you may qualify for either one of them or both of them. All right. Let's look at, there's some tax abatements, tax exemptions. I'm not necessarily going to go into that. There's a live performance production program. There's, obviously there's a lot of music. It's a big industry there in Louisiana. If you've ever been to Mardi Gras, you've seen that, but a lot of jazz. I love jazz. And Louisiana is great for jazz. New Orleans is an awesome city for music. Man, you can see some serious musicians just on the street. Blow your socks off. As long as you're not there at a time of year where it's too hot, because it can get really muggy there. Really muggy and hot. But it looks like, let's see, if you have a theatrical production, live performance. So I don't necessarily think it has to be a movie. It could be a speaking engagement from what I'm reading here. A lot of entrepreneurs are doing that kind of stuff. You can get a unique tax incentive for that. And it looks like you get like a 7% credit for expenditures between $100,000 and $300,000. They have another tier for $300,000 to $1 million, and another tier for $1 million. So that's pretty neat. And again, that tax credit, I mean, if you think about it, if you're in Louisiana, and let's say even at the bottom tier, if you spend $200,000, you could get a $14,000 credit. That's a lot of state tax. So that would knock out a big portion of a lot of people's tax bill. So that's pretty neat. A lot of these tax credits are just, they're there. People just don't know they're there. And so, it's not like anybody can just walk up and get a bunch of tax credits, but the tax credits that are made for certain niches, most of the people that are in that niche, they have no clue. They have no clue that this thing exists for them. So let's see. There's a music job creation program, which I don't have to go into too deep. I think that has to do with, if you're in the music industry, you should be looking at the former credit I just talked about and the music job creation program. Let's see. There's a quality jobs program. That's a rebate on payroll expenses. But again, if you're an employer, you're hiring people, reach out to your CPA, reach out to us, reach out to your payroll provider, your PEO, whatever it might be, and say, hey, I feel like I'm missing job credits, federal and state. Let's look through these and do some research, because not every state has these kind of credits. Louisiana does. So if you're hiring people, go look at it. All right. Let's see. There's a restoration tax abatement. It looks like if you're rehabbing an existing structure, it's not tax credits, but you can get a tax abatement for 10 years on that structure. That's pretty cool. So if you're in real estate and you rehabilitate an existing structure, you have to dig more into that. A lot of details involved in that one. But in that case, you could get, you could get free, tax-free, property tax-free for 10 years. That's huge. Usually I see people having to negotiate that with local city councils and whatnot. So in Louisiana, they just give it to you. That's pretty awesome. Let's see. They have a lot of programs in there. They have like CEO roundtable programs that, again, these aren't tax credits, but I just thought they were kind of some neat things they do, that, they're sponsoring and helping to help business. Let's see, they have bonding assistance programs for contractors, which I know a lot of contractors struggle with, so that's pretty neat. Let's see, they've got looks like they have a lot of certification programs for different trades and whatnot, different sort of, between blue and white collar kind of trades. They have contractor accreditation programs that are paid for by the state. They have some stuff for veterans. They have a small business loan and guarantee program. Just like the SBA does federally, they have something called the SSBCI, and you can get lending up for $5,000 to $1.5 million through the state of Louisiana. So if you are interested in getting a loan, skip going to the bank first. I would go to these programs here, either the state or federal. The SBA has great financing. It's not just for unsophisticated or or poor. You know, I don't know. It seems like there's a stigma on it, like it's only for. It's not as sexy as maybe other types of capital that people want to go get, or some big bank or something. But you know, their money's just as good as anybody else's, and a lot of times the terms are very favorable. And a little secret is that they don't typically enforce collection if you default as hardcore as a regular bank would, okay? You didn't hear that from me, but just to let you know. Let's see. They have mentorship programs. They have a lot of grants, a lot of grants. You're going to check that out if you want to see if you want to get some money. And again, they have some veteran programs you probably want to check out. Looks like they're helping veteran-owned businesses, and veterans get hired at different places. So if you're an employer, veterans are awesome they're some of the hardest working people, very disciplined, they've been trained. You know, most of the problems that personally I've had with a lot of employees has nothing to do with their technical ability. It just has to do with the way they work and things like that. And a lot of times with people coming out of the military, you know that some of that stuff's baked in. So it's pretty neat. And plus I have a soft spot for veterans. So I think that's a cool thing. So anyway, there's a lot going on in Louisiana. If you're not aware of all these incentives and credits, you need to check this out. Or if you have questions about maybe something you qualify for, or if you spend a lot of money on something and you're not sure if it qualifies for something, put a note, send us a note, put it in the comments. If you're in Louisiana and you're a tax pro, you know, if I said anything that was off or I left something out, please comment. I'm not here to necessarily, you know, protect my ego or something like that. I just want to get this information out there. And I think there's so much in tax credits and incentives that people are just not taking advantage of. And I want to see these businesses succeed. And just a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of know-how, and knowing kind of, you know, how to get some of this money, because the money is there for you. I mean, they're trying to get people to do, you know, you're already doing things that they're rewarding you for, and it's not there. So just awareness is important too. So whatever we can do to get people more aware. So if you're in Louisiana, I hope you enjoyed this. If you know somebody in Louisiana that could use this, please forward it to them. I think if we like this video, not everybody watches this on like YouTube or one of those platforms, but I think if you subscribe or click like, I think it helps get in front of more people eventually. Kind of while we're growing the channel and our video content. So appreciate that if you could do that. And with that, I am going to wrap it up. And tomorrow on day 19, we're going to talk about Indiana. And there's more than corn in Indiana. There's actually there's tax credits too. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there used to be an old commercial that to promote Indiana tourism, and there's more than corn in Indiana. So anyway, my family's from Indiana. I'm a Midwestern person, born and raised in Chicago, but my parents both grew up in rural areas in Indiana, and I still have family there in West Lafayette. It's just near Purdue, and yeah, good people and good, just good people there, and a lot of good business. So until tomorrow, I will say goodnight, and hope this was helpful.